This project is not about doing things easy. This project is about changing mindset and changing values.
Yeah.
And also educating a new generation of young Malaysians that know their rights and know what is good for the community.
Hi, my name is Jia-Ping Lee, and for the last 10 years, I've been an urban rejuvenator and a placemaker. Welcome to Soul Cities, a placemaker's guide to living. So I'm not just a placemaker, I'm also an urban rejuvenator. So I look at how to create economic vibrancy in a city. And economic vibrancy really is about creating or enabling entrepreneurship, startups, communities to thrive within any given area in a city. Placemaking is a tool for urban rejuvenation. And so I really wanted to help people understand what placemaking is by showing them best practice examples. Placemaking is about looking at places and saying, how can I bring communities together? Or how can I create a product that brings community together? Or how can I enable someone as a coach to actually start something or to support them to create longer term projects? Why I champion placemaking is because it has elements of humanity, which is so needed in rejuvenation of cities and places. So KKB is one of the projects that I feel is going to be a legacy for me because I spent a year coaching. So you need the leader to have the vision, but you also need a facilitator and an enabler to understand the leader's vision and hold it and fight for it within a funding organization. And that was my role in Think City. Sek San is an icon in the city because he basically created this urban spring movement a couple of years before Think City came to KL. He was a very renowned figure before that as a landscape architect. So he was invited by Think City to be part of a working group to think about what Kuala Lumpur would need moving forward. He said, hey, I have an idea, and I have this idea of a park under the electricity pylons or a farm under the electricity pylons. And he showed it to me and I thought, well, this is very interesting. And I said, but what I would like you to do is come and actually maybe talk to the local government, DBKL. What I didn't realize was he had a huge following in DBKL, which is the Dewan Bandaraya Kuala Lumpur, the local government here. I think for Kebun Kebun Bangsar, it was really, maybe it was meant to be because there were so many things that came together at the right time. So KKB is like any park in KL, except that it has animals. And the animals and the farming aspect of the park, it's a live farm, it's a working farm, really helps people understand this is the ecology of food, right? So the animals helps you to understand that actually, you know, you're not the only one living here. You actually coexist with other things, right? Other beings. That whole community is about caring for the earth, caring for each other, caring for the animals. And also it's now a learning platform for new generation or anyone who's not used to urban farming to come and become urban farmers themselves. So, I mean, from the economic level, from the social level, and from the educational level, there's so much value in this strip of land that was left empty until Kebun Kebun Bangsar came in. And I think it's changed the way the community comes together.
I'm really looking forward to meeting up with Sek San and learning more about Kebun Kebun Bangsar.
Good morning. Very good maintenance. Very good maintenance.
Yes.
But
Okay. Which part was it? Can we reroll?
hey, that's interesting lah. Put it in lah. Don't be so anal lah, you. That's the most interesting. This is the most interesting part of the interview, okay? And it should be right in there because that is what people will remember it as.
you know, it's been a long journey. Thank you for doing this. And can you just tell me what was the idea that started it all? Right.
This project started in 2013, and I was involved in the political campaign with Nurul Izzah, and she didn't have the resources to do her political visual campaign. So we helped her. We planted a lot of flowers in roundabouts and public areas.
So it was amazing, the urban spring and the flags.
Yes.
And, so how did that idea come about?
The Eden project, where they planted a lot of artificial flowers on their new garden because the garden was just started and wasn't established. So they have to use artificial like flags to create like major installation on the mountainside. I basically used the idea for her campaign.
Okay. And so how did that campaign lead to thinking of creating an urban farm?
We saw that when Malaysians come together, we can move mountains. And we thought that it's a waste if we just let it be a short campaign.
Right.
And then we
right.
fizzle out. So
Right.
after that, some of us got together after the election. We said, why don't we start something where we actually grow something permanently? The campaign was about planting hope in Malaysians
Right. Yes.
for election. This one is exactly the same idea. It's about planting
Right.
back hope in Malaysians. Hopefully that our young children, my children included, do not migrate
Yes.
and give up on the country.
Yeah, we are losing a lot of talent,
Yeah.
even now as we speak, right? And I keep saying that actually Malaysia is such a gift,
Yep.
and people don't understand how to actually bring that gift really alive.
Yeah.
So coming to this hope, how did you come across the idea of this land?
This
I mean,
land.
you know.
I live about 1 minute away.
Right.
So I've been looking at this piece of land for almost 30 years. And I felt that it was such a waste. And I'm a landscape architect. You see, when I submit projects to DBKL for approval from my developers, they always ask for 10% of the land to be given back to the public as kawasan lapang, open space.
Then you did community engagement.
Yes.
I remember going down and there were a bit of objections in Taman Wenglok. So
Yes.
Taman Wenglok is
Yes.
just further down the hill.
Yes.
So what were some of the main concerns of the residents
Okay.
at that time?
Our application for the land was 3 parcels. Okay,
Right.
there's 3 individual parcels. The parcel 1, which we call, was near Taman Wenglok. That's where we wanted to start. And the residents was very opposed to the idea because the main concern was car parking, privacy, security, landslide,
Right,
etc., etc.
Yeah.
They coin up all the negative things associated with change.
Yes.
Because I think most people don't like change.
Right, yes.
They say it's a good idea,
Yeah.
but please don't do it in my backyard.
I also recall a conversation we had where you were about to throw in the towel, right?
I did throw
I
in
mean,
the towel.
yeah, well, you did throw in the towel. And so what changed your mind?
I went into depression
Oh, okay.
after that. 2016, I think end of 2016, the mayor came back to tell us it's no go.
Right.
The residents don't support it, don't do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I went into hibernation. I was sitting out at Bala restaurant when it was first open and empty.
Yes.
And I was just depressed and doing sketches and things like that.
Right.
But 1 year later, I came out of it. I say, if I don't complete this project, it would be a very, very sad thing for my children,
Yes.
as well as for other children.
And I think the funders also were very supportive
Yes.
for you, right?
Yes.
I mean, they had already earmarked some monies.
Yes.
And I think this is Think City.
Yep.
And they basically said, you know, the money is there for you.
Yes, but the
Right.
CIMB pulled out though.
Right. Yeah.
CIMB earmarked our biggest donor at that time.
Right,
But
right.
then when they find that it was such a controversial project, they totally pull out. Think City was extremely useful at that time. They came and they backed us.
Right.
When
yeah.
we started in 2017, 1 year after my thing, I shifted from Parcel 1 into Parcel 2.
Right.
Parcel 2, we have another engagement with the residents, but there were less houses nearby, about 18 houses or 14 houses. And Datuk Najib was sitting with me.
Yes,
So he
yeah.
told the resident, he said, you guys are damn lucky that Kebun Bangsar is even consulting you guys on this use, because this use is permissible by car parks, nurseries, commercial nurseries and other things. And
Yes.
when they do it, they will not consult you.
Yeah.
So that actually just
Oh,
put
bless him.
things in
Yeah.
perspectives.
Yeah. Okay. When you moved in here, there were a lot of issues. So the first thing was the cows,
Yeah.
right? Tell me why you brought the cows in and how are they important?
This is 7 acres of land that we are taking care of.
right.
So as volunteers, when we first came in, we bought a cutting machine and we were constantly cutting grass. So the obvious reason for, or the obvious rationale for us is to bring in some animals to help us at least take care of the land in terms of the mowing. So that was the initial thing. And then I put up a social media post. I said we need 1 cow. And then a lady with a Tibetan monk came with
Wow.
a cow.
Okay.
So she donated that to us. And then later she found that the cow was a bit lonely. So she brought in another one, a female. The first
Yes.
one was a male. She brought in a female cow and there
Right.
was 2 cows helping us. But we run a permaculture system here where we don't use chemical fertilizers or whatever, right? The cow is a very critical component of this whole ecosystem.
Right.
Because they not only eat the grass, but they provide us a lot of fertilizers.
Right. And so these cows, I mean, they've been your savior, but they've also almost closed you down.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
tell us about that.
My volunteers told me, Sek San, let's make life easy, send the cows away. This project is not about doing things easy. This project is about changing mindset and changing values
Yeah.
and building ecosystem and also educating a new generation of young Malaysians that know their rights and know what is good for the community.
Right.
So I said, no, the cow is an essential part of our system now. It's either the cow stay
Yeah.
or entire kebun goes.
Right.
That was my,
Yeah.
I put my foot down.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is there any thinking
Yeah.
or development of extending this to either upwards or another site?
We actually have another site called Kebun Kebun Kerinci. That one uses the river reserve.
Right.
This one is in a very rich part of Kuala Lumpur, which is Bangsar.
Yeah.
That one is in a very poor part of Kuala Lumpur called Kerinci.
Right.
But it was a different model. We start it, but we hand it back to the local leaders after 2 years. It's a lot easier to get volunteers here because there are people with a lot of spare time here.
Yes,
Over
yes.
there, the people are so overworked.
Yes.
They cannot do volunteer work.
Right.
In fact, the young people were not there.
And I understand that LA21 still has, you know, a lot of plans for building up green areas. So have they come here to interact with you since the cow
No.
incident? Right.
In fact,
Yeah.
never.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you then avoid eviction?
When they give us the eviction notice, which is a very serious notice.
Yes.
Because we are in an architectural field, we know.
It's red in color.
Yeah, it's red in color. It's stuck onto like a squatter, into a squatter community
Yes.
or a warung or mamak store, which
Yes.
is illegal, right?
Yes.
And also in that letter, it's stated as a 5 years jail sentence
Right, right.
and a $500,000 fine.
Right. So one of my biggest issues about how local governments or the authorities run places is it's always to the voice, pandering to the voice of the few,
Yep.
and then the rest of the community suffers, right?
The lesson that we learned, I told this to DBKL. I said, hey, if there is a complaint, it must not come from an individual. That individual must take it to their local representative, which a lot of places is a resident association.
Right, right.
Let the residents association complain. Then you take action.
Right.
Because that's more collective.
Yes.
Individuals have got personal agendas. You don't know what those agendas are. And sometimes it's abuse. I think that is the lesson that I hope DBKL will learn.
Yeah. So one of the things that I remember was that the conversation when you had thrown in the towel, I said you cannot let the few dictate the greater good,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And of course we don't, now we say this is the greater good, but then later on there might be another greater good, right? We don't know.
Sure.
So and I feel that sometimes people get cowed by authorities.
Yes.
You know, so I like it when you say that this place is about changing values. It's about getting people to be empowered,
Yeah.
to think differently,
Yeah.
to say, this is your right.
Yeah.
You know. So, have you seen evidence of that since you?
Change?
Yeah, of that
No.
mindset change.
No. I'm shaking my head. DBKL hasn't changed.
Right. Right.
DPKL is a very, very important organization in our city.
Absolutely,
In any
yeah.
cities, the city council the mayor is probably the second most important person after the prime minister,
Right.
if you ask me.
Right.
And things like this, I think the organization have not changed because it's shown in other things. Like if one of my neighbor complain about a tree, a
Yes.
public tree outside their house,
Right.
DPKL will come and chop it down.
Right.
So I say, how can you do that? You must get the individual to go through an organization
Right.
to
Yes.
to make such requests. So DPKL is just pandering to powerful individuals.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, we need that change, but now I'm seeing a groundswell support, and really the groundswell is actually affecting some kind of change, lah.
Sure.
Whether it is knee jerk or
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So how do we keep building this groundswell?
I think we just got to plonk on. I think this project is not about a project. This project, Kebun Kebun Bangsar, is an idea.
Yes.
It's an idea that needs to spread. So I was telling people, I can only do one. You have to do the rest. We want 200 more of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a precedent.
What is it about people who love the land,
Yep.
and they really give a lot to this
Yeah.
to this land, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to somewhere where there's not much, it's all hard surfaces, but it's about charity.
Yeah.
And the only other ones that really hit a button are, so now food security is
Yeah.
huge, and children's charities, right?
Yeah.
But beyond that, the aged, we're talking about, better access for the aged, better things for disabled or less able people. That's not quite, getting the groundswell movement.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think good intentions are not good enough.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the execution must be just as good.
yeah.
And a lot of project is good in intention but lousy in execution. So I think the difference between this project is that we got so many experts helping us. We were consciously putting the emphasis on the land. It's about just improving the soil, looking at how the water systems here work, understanding ecology. Those type of knowledge, I think, is critical in the execution.
Yeah.
Because when we execute, it is visible.
Yeah. I mean, I like it how that one of the first things you did was put in an educational program, right?
Yeah.
The paddy field
Yeah.
that used to be there,
Yeah.
getting kids in.
Yeah.
So what has been the reception from educational organizations to Kebun Kebun Bangsar?
Very good. A lot of our volunteers today are from institutions,
Right.
universities.
Okay.
They all force their kids to come here to volunteer, And of
And-
course, a lot of kindergartens,
So yes.
smaller kids.
And how are they with all the
Oh, they love it.
wildlife
They
running
love
around?
it, yeah. Because a lot of these kids don't have the chance to interact with all these animals like that.
So one of the most touching moments I had was we had just come out of lockdown. I think it was 2022. And we were sitting there having coffee. And this man with his toddler, like the child was 6 months old, baby. And I said, why are you here? And he says, this is the first time this child has been out of the house. And I wanted him to come to a green area. And that kind of went, all this was worthwhile. What you did, all that
Yeah.
hardship that you went through. How do we get more people like those who've been affected or inspired by Kebun Kebun? How do we enable them to create more projects like this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the steps?
We are only 7 years old.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that a lot of those young kids that come through here, right, in the future, I think they will be
Yeah.
leaders in their own right. After the last eviction protest, I took myself and a lot of the older committee members out
Right.
and put in all the younger ones.
Right. Why was that?
I think that's important because we need fresh ideas. We need to remove the egos, like myself. So I'm no longer a chairperson. In fact, I'm not even a committee now.
Yeah.
So I'm just the gardener here now.
Yes. As long as you have your kettle and your chair to have your teh tarik, you'll be happy, right?
Yeah. But I think if you inspire people, people will take up the leadership.
And one of the key things about the city now is this creeping loneliness, right?
Yep.
And people are still very moored inside their house on social media. And so I think that this is like an oasis for
Yep.
people to come and make friends. I mean, people always ask me, what does placemaking mean, right? So I mean, at the very core, placemaking is about creating places where people can belong,
Yep.
can find their tribe and belong,
Yep.
right? And I think that the tribe here,
Yep.
two-legged, four-legged,
Yep.
is so crucial
Yep.
for that. I mean, I remember the first time that you opened your doors, there was an elderly couple and a lady, you know, either on a wheelchair or walking stick, and she had obviously some kind of dementia, you know, and she just sat there for the longest time. And I just thought, this is what this place is about. It's about, it doesn't look at economic structure.
Yep.
It doesn't matter whether you have money or you have no money.
Yep.
This place is an oasis or a haven for you
Yep.
to come in. I remember once that you, during the lockdown crisis, you went out with a plea to say that we want to raise money
Yep.
for food and vegetables for, you know, people with no
Yep.
food. You immediately raised what, 40,000?
Yes.
In like less than few weeks, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks or 2 or
2
3
weeks.
weeks. Yeah.
And so I
During
think
the
that,
pandemic.
I think this is, it takes a village to really make
Yeah.
anything successful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have been very blessed by your village lah, right? And even those people, when I go to Taman Weilok nowadays, I think what a blessing that we didn't start there.
Yeah.
That we started here. This is a blessing.
Yeah. God works in mysterious
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Without the initial protest, we might not be what we are today.
Correct.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, and you know, I'm sure we'll talk again another day.
Yeah.
The meeting with Sek San was just so inspiring. I learned so much about leadership from just that 20 minutes of conversation with him, and I can't wait to share it with you.
So one of the key takeaways that I got from the interview, the world is littered with good intentions. But it's not enough to just have good intentions. You have to have a strength of courage and a strength of conviction. And that strength needs to drive you through a decade or 2 decades long for this cause, whatever cause you have. Sek San was in a time of his life when he had the resources to not work, and he had the resources to put full time into this project. So aside from the leaders, you need your infrastructure, your societal infrastructure, whether it's your family to support you, whether it's someone who cooks for you when you come home, that amazing role that, you know, mothers play or parents play or wives play or husbands play. So it really takes a village, yeah, and all of that coming together to create a successful project. So I do hope you'll stay with me on my journey of covering more stories, more leadership, more placemaking project. We're going to talk to other leaders who have created innovative programs and have built following, just like Kebun Kebun Bangsar, but in other areas, such as in the heart of the city, in like a little district of city. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.